very good. Well, I'm glad everybody's here. Does anybody have any questions before we start? Okay. What I'd like to do is we'll do the opening prayers, and then we will recite the prayer Kuntuzangpo, and we'll take turns. We'll alternate pages or sections of it, so everybody gets a chance to do that. And then we'll go back and then we'll talk about different references and so on, and try and make some sense out of the totality of what it is. So this way we'll get a context of what it is, so everybody has a chance to contemplate the meaning through the reading. Is that okay? Okay. All right. So then let's begin by doing our opening prayers. And let me see. William, would you like to do the opening prayers tonight? You just read them one time in English, you'll be fine.
Okay, I finally got unmuted.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I can do the opening prayers.
All right, just read them one time in English. We'll go through them. Is Bonnie with you? Yeah, I see her show.
Yeah, I just got our books.
Oh, okay, good. All right, so William will be our umze tonight, and then we'll go through that, and then we'll alternate reading the text. So if everybody has their copies, and there are page numbers on this, so if we call out page numbers, we can do it that way. It'll be fine, okay? All right, so William, whenever you're ready, please.
Altruistic motivation. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in a state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Okay. Action Bodhicitta prayer. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform various deeds with body, speech, and mind. It's virtuous deeds. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Long refuge prayer. We take refuge in the kind, root, and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the yadams. We take refuge in the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Taking the Bodhisattva vow. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Short refuge prayer. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, most excellent. I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. 4 immeasurables. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversions.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Okay, so now we'll go to the booklet. And we'll start with Gary, if that's okay. So Gary will do page 1. And I'll do page 2. Michael will do page 3. Curtis will do page 4. Adrian will do page 5. William will do page 6. And Bonnie will do page 7. And then we'll continue around the cycle again, okay? So we start with Gary.
The powerful prayer of aspiration. From the Tantra of the great perfection that reveals the all-penetrating wisdom, mind of Samattabhadra. Ho, all that appears and exists, Samsara and Nirvana, has one ground, 2 paths, and 2 forms of fruition. The magical displays of awareness and unawareness. Through this, Samattabhadra's prayer of aspiration. May all attain complete and perfect awakening within the palace of Dharmahatu, the absolute sphere. The basis of everything is uncompounded, a self-originating expanse, vast and inexpressible.
Beyond the names Samsara and Nirvana.
Oh, sorry, it was my turn. I'm sorry, I forgot to turn my microphone on. Beyond the names Samsara and Nirvana, this itself, when seen, is awakening. But in their ignorance, beings wander in Samsara. May all sentient beings throughout the 3 realms realize the meaning of the ineffable ground. I, Samattabhadra, know the ground's reality, which is without cause or condition. It originates by itself within this very ground. It is unspoiled by perspective, supposition, or denial, and unobscured by the darkness of unmindful delusion. That which is self-manifest is thus without fault.
When abiding in genuine intrinsic awareness, there is no fear, even at triple the world's demise. There is no attachment to the 5 sensory delights. In self-originating awareness free of concepts, there is neither solid form nor the 5 poisons. The unobstructed clarity of awareness is one in essence and 5-fold in wisdom. Through the ripening of the 5 wisdoms, the 5 original Buddha families arise. And through wisdom's further expansion, the 42 peaceful Buddhas emerge.
With the upsurge of fivefold wisdom's power, the 60 blood-drinking Harukas appear. Thus, ground awareness has never known delusion. I am the primordial Buddha, and therefore, through this, my prayer of aspiration, may beings of Samsara's 3 realms recognize self-originating awareness so that vast wisdom may be perfected. Continuously, my emanations will appear in their many billions beyond imagining, manifest in varied ways according to need.
Through this, my compassionate aspiration, may all the beings of Samsara's 3 realms escape their plight among the 6 classes. From the very first, since awareness does not dawn for deluded beings within the ground, they are entirely mindless and confused. This itself is unawareness, delusion's cause. And then, as if out of sudden daze, there is anxiety and mental disquiet, from which notions of self and other and enmity appear, as this habitual tendency is then reinforced.
Samsara unfolds in its regular progression. Thus, minds, afflictions, the 5 poisons develop, and actions born of these 5 poisons never end. Therefore, since the basis for being's delusion is a lack of mindfulness and absence of awareness, through this, my aspiration as a Buddha, may all beings recognize their own awareness. The unawareness that is co-emergent is the state of mindlessness, distraction, the unawareness that designates its dualistic clinging to self and other.
These 2, co-emergent and designating unawareness, provide the basis for the delusion of all beings. Now, through this, my aspiration as a Buddha, may the dark and murky gloom of mindlessness among all sentient beings in samsara be dispelled. May their dualistic perceptions be purified, and may they recognize their very own awareness. A mind of dualistic clinging is one of doubt. From subtle attachment, once it has arisen, habitual tendencies gradually gain strength. Food, wealth, clothing, home, and companions.
Barry? Page 8.
The pleasures of the 5 senses are dear relations. Whatever is attractive beings the torment of desire. These are the delusions of the world. Actions based on dualistic clinging are unending. When the fruits of attachment come to ripen, they bring birth as a preta, tormented by desire. How wretched are the pains of hunger and thirst. Now through this, my aspiration as a Buddha, may beings beset by craving and attachment neither cast aside the torment of desire nor pursue the craving of attachment.
But by allowing the mind to relax just as it is, may they capture the natural state of awareness and gain the wisdom of perfect discernment. Through the subtle stirrings of anxiety and fear towards the appearance of external objects, habitual tendencies of aversion are reinforced, opening the way to enmity injury, and slaughter. When the fruits of aggression come to ripen, how harrowing will be the boilings and burnings of hell. Now through this, my aspiration as a Buddha, may all the sentient beings of the 6 realms, Michael,
whenever they are beset by intense aggression, neither reject nor indulge it, but relax therein, capture the natural state of their own awareness, and gain the wisdom of lucid clarity. When the mind grows conceited, it brings thoughts of rivalry and disdain, and the arising of intense pride leads to the suffering of quarrels and disputes. When the fruits of such karma come to ripen, they will bring birth as a deva subject to passage and fall. Now through this, my aspiration as a Buddha.
May all sentient beings in whom conceit is born relax their minds there and then, capture the natural state of their own awareness, and realize the true meaning of equality. Habitual tendencies of intense dualistic clinging bring about the pain of self-flattery and contempt, and by inflaming conflict, dispute, and competition, lead to birth in the Asura realm of slaughter and mutilation, which in turn results in descent to the domains of hell. Now through this, my aspiration as a Buddha, may those in whom rivalry and antagonism take root
not regard them as enemies, but relax there and then, capture the natural state of their own awareness, and gain the wisdom of unimpeded activity. Mindlessness, indifference, distraction, dullness, drowsiness, oblivion, insensibility, laziness, and stupidity result in helpless animal wandering. Now through this, my aspiration as a Buddha, may the light of clear cognizance arise in those plunged into stupidity's gloom, and may they gain wisdom free of thought.
All sentient beings. Oh, sorry.
All sentient beings throughout the 3 realms are equal to me, the Buddha, in the ground of all. Yet for them, it is but a base of mindless delusion. And now they engage in meaningless pursuits with 6-fold karma, as if deceived by a dream. Yet I am the primordial Buddha, guide to the 6 classes through my emanations. Through this Samsara prayer of aspiration, may all sentient beings, without exception, awaken with the Dharma Hachu, the absolute sphere.
Aho, henceforth, whenever a powerful yogi with natural, clear, undiluted awareness recites this powerful aspiration, all sentient beings who hear it will awaken within the course of 3 lives. When Rahu seizes the sun or moon, whenever the earth rumbles or quakes, at the solstices or close of the year, visualize yourself as Samattabhadra and chant this loud so that all may hear.
Then all the beings of the 3 realms will, through the yogi's prayer of aspiration, gradually be freed from their suffering and ultimately awaken as a Buddha.
Please read that small print, the italics in the middle of the page.
This was extracted from the 19th chapter of the Tantra of the great perfection that reveals the all-penetrating wisdom mind of Samantabhadra, which teaches that through making a powerful prayer of aspiration, all sentient beings cannot but awaken.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So Samantabhadra, we talked about, is the primordial Buddha. So pure that he's unborn, non-conceptual, inexpressible. And then we use the iconography of this pure blue body, this naked blue body, without any adornment, to be able to give some, representation of what this purity means to us. So the subsequent Buddhas, the other Buddhas of the Sambhogagaya, well, let me back up just a second. Samantabhadra would be the Buddha of the Dharmadhatu, the Dharmakaya, and everything else comes from that, kind of emerges from that. Everything else becomes a display from that. So the other Buddhas are manifestations of the different wisdoms and skillful means of Samantabhadra, in order that ordinary human beings can experience an introduction to those Buddhas, so that they may recognize those Buddhas within themselves, and then ultimately recognize Samantabhadra within themselves, that they are part of Samantabhadra. So if anybody has questions while I'm talking, please speak up. So
the subsequent Buddhas are the Sambhogakaya emanations of Samantabhadra?
correct.
Thank you.
So here it's talking about, in the first line, back on page 1, it says, Ho, all that appears and exists, Samsara and Nirvana. So what this means is phenomenal nature, relative nature. So Samsara and Nirvana are two sides of the same hand, which is dualistic, which is all part of phenomenal nature. Samantabhadra comes from the absolute nature, and the relative nature is a display of that absolute nature. So Samsara and Nirvana are both part of that. So one has one ground, two paths, and two forms of fruition. So what this means is the ground is, the basis on which we are working, this phenomenal nature. And the two paths are knowing or not knowing. In other words, knowledge or ignorance. Now, there are those that are in this relative world that we live who have knowledge of the spirit and so on. There are those, and most beings have no knowledge. They are ignorant. But we coexist and we talk to each other. So it says has one ground, two paths, knowing or not knowing, ignorance, and two forms of fruition. The two forms of fruition, or the result, is the result for the benefit of others, or the benefit of the benefit of ourselves. They happen simultaneously. It's not an either or. That we are helping others, and through helping others, we help ourselves. This is the fruition. And what we find is that the fruition was already in the ground, but we didn't recognize it. But by traveling the path of the two paths of going from ignorance to knowing, we begin to have the fruition. We begin to attain the fruition, the result, the recognition of the benefit of others and the benefit of ourselves. So it's the ground, the path, and the result.
Lance, I have a question. I'm just curious. If the two paths are knowing and not knowing, knowing and ignorance, is it possible the two forms of fruition are virtue and suffering? The suffering from bad action?
No, the
Good karma,
forms of
bad karma?
fruition, the forms of fruition are the benefits. No,
So what are the two forms again?
the two forms are knowing and not knowing.
I mean, the two forms of fruition.
The two forms of fruition are others' benefit and our benefit.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the magical displays of awareness and unawareness. So it's saying what I just said, the magical displays of awareness and unawareness. Through this, Samantapadra's prayer of aspiration, may all attain complete and perfect awakening within the palace of Dharmadhatu, the absolute sphere. So this absolute sphere is that sphere that is all the space that all this emerges from, that which is non-conceptual, inexpressible. So this is the Dharmadhatu. So we talk about absolute nature, which is Dharmadhatu, and relative nature, which would be Kama Dhatu or Rupa Dhatu. And we're going to get to that in a minute. So it says the basis of everything is uncompounded. So this ground, this basis is uncompounded, but the Dharmadhatu, it's self-originating expanse, vast and inexpressible. Self-originating. So what does self-originating mean? It doesn't come from a self like we think of ourself. It doesn't come from that. What it means, it is in essence, it is pure. Its essence is you can't say it, it's like being singular, but it's non-conceptual. The essence is just, it's there.
So the singularity is a good Western way to at least name it, right?
Yeah, but don't hold on to that. Don't hold on to that idea because then that begins to imply the singularity, because it's beyond singularity. But the self-originating means that it is completely pure, unborn, uncontaminated with any intellectualization that we might be able to divine for it. So we've been there, we are here now. When we leave our body, when we drop our body, so to speak, and we go into the bardo of reality, we are just thrust into that. And we've done that many, many times because we've all died many times. And we remain there until we have to be reborn, that we can't stand it anymore. Either we stay there as a Buddha, or we relent and we say, I have to have a body. I have to be born again. I have to have some substance. I can't remain in this degree of freedom. Because to be a Buddha is to be perfectly free. So then we go into the bardo of becoming, the bardo of rebirth. And then we become born again, and then we come into the bardo of existence, or this bardo of living that we are in now. So there's 6 bardos. So this yes.
How much more freedom do they have than what we have?
We don't have very much freedom. You may think that we do. We want to think that we do, but we don't have very much freedom. We are bound by all our emotions. We are bound by our intellectual confusions. We are bound by our physical body. We are bound by the 3 dimensions. We are bound up in so many ways. We like to think that we're free. But imagine that you have your mind right now, and then all of a sudden you don't have your body anymore, and you don't have your brain anymore. But you are totally free. That love is now able to be unhindered. It becomes just released, and you just become love. Pure spirit.
Lance, just to go back to the question that Curtis had, the 2 forms of fruition, self and others, is that the duality? Or is it, it's not literally like myself and Curtis?
It's a function. It's a function of the path. It's a result of the path.
It's others' benefit and our own benefit, specifically, Adrian.
What do you love?
What's that?
What do you love?
What do you love?
Yes. Is freedom the same as being alone? What do you love there?
Our word love connotes, has a meaning to us, but it's an unimaginable love. It's beyond that love. So all these things, and Adrian's question and Curtis's question, your question, remember, we're being exposed to this. We're being introduced to this. So there may not be a total connection and inseparability with some of these ideas right now. So you have to contemplate this. You have to meditate on this. You have to let this sink in.
But
what?
So I just don't get this, the forms of fruition. Is it how? I don't get it.
I can't say it any simpler.
Yeah.
That is the work. That is the primal cause. That is the Shri of the primal cause is for the benefit of others.
Self and others, and that will be the 2 forms of fruition.
For the
Is that right?
Of others, for the benefit of others, and for what, and then one's benefit is part of that, is the other side of that. Through doing for others, we benefit. This is a very basic bodhisattva premise.
Okay, so just looking through the Bodhisattva's lens.
Can I get in a little bit on this?
Sure.
I think that the reality is that we are one and we're inseparable. So if I do something for you, I'm doing it for myself. I'm doing it for me. But I'm doing it for you. And because you're part of me, I'm receiving the same that you are.
That's very good. Yes, you're right.
Okay.
Don't get hung up on the idea of the one.
I completely understand that. Like the bodhisattvas, once you said bodhisattva, okay, that totally put like from a different perspective. I just can like put this wording into together with the concept of the bodhisattva. Okay, all right, makes sense now. Thank you.
Thank you, William. That was very good. So the self-originating expanse is coming from this purity. It's vast and inexpressible. It's beyond our human comprehension, but it can be experienced. So as we begin to experience that, what we are doing, what we are experiencing is our Samantabhadra nature, our Buddha nature, what we call Buddha nature. You know, because it's all part of us. We are all part of that. Okay, so then it says, next page, it says beyond names, samsara and nirvana. So it's beyond the duality, the dualistic nature of samsara, of suffering and happiness. So it's beyond that. This itself, when seen, is awakening. When it's seen, is awakening. Buddha, the word Buddha in Sanskrit means the awakened one, means that now you see this, you recognize this. So the ground, we start off in this ground, but we don't see everything. Then we travel along the path, purifying along the way. We get to the fruition, and then we see, oh, it was there the whole time. I just didn't recognize it. I just saw Adrian's brain just explode. Okay, so this itself, when seen, is awakening, that we see all this. And remember, remember the story of the Buddha when he attained enlightenment, and he's sitting under the tree, and he goes through the purification where the three demons arise, and then he purifies that, and then his mind opens up. Then everything opens up. He sees everything. He sees all the lives of all the beings. He sees all this phenomenal world in all its many, many, many permutations and myriad ways in which it's experienced and so on, all of this. He sees all that. But simultaneously, he's seeing the absolute nature of it all. That he becomes that absolute nature to be able to see all these myriad aspects. He sees it from the point of view of the Buddha and no longer from the point of view of a phenomenal being. A phenomenal being can only see the trees when they're in the woods. They can't see the forest. But if you can rise up above the canopy of the trees, now you can see the forest. And now you see the totality of what it is. So that's a simile for this absolute nature. So it says here next, it says, but in their ignorance, beings wander in samsara among the trees. May all sentient beings throughout the three realms realize the meaning of the ineffable ground. Okay, so, but in their ignorance, they wander in samsara, suffering, the ocean of suffering. May all sentient beings throughout the three realms. So what are the three realms? So the three realms are explained in many different ways. There's different ways of looking at it. So one way is to look at it that what is below ground, what is on the ground, and what is above ground. And this time I'm just talking about, the earth or whatever, but there are invisible beings that we don't see that are subterranean. that are in the water, that are in the oceans. We don't see them. We know they're there, but we don't recognize, we don't see them readily. We have to dig for them. We have to look for them, but they're there. And then on top of the ground where we live, we see each other, we see other animals and insects and so on. We see all these creatures and so on that are visible to us. And then that which is above, that there are those that are in the atmosphere, there are those that are in beyond the atmosphere, there are those that are in, all the space and all the bodies of the celestial bodies and so on that we don't see, but yet, logic tells us they're there. So that's one way of looking at it, of the three realms, or as I say, the three realms. Another way of looking at it is whatever can be conceptualized, that the three realms the three realms are contained by whatever can be conceptualized. So these three things that I just said, below, what is invisible, but is below, what is apparent, that is visible, and is invisible, but above, these are all conceptual ideas that are all in this phenomenal space. And all the planets, all the galaxies and everything are all part of this phenomenal nature. Now, another way of looking at it, a more inner way of looking at it, are what they call the dhatus, or the lokas. So there's kama loka, there's rupa loka, and there is arupa loka. And those are Sanskrit names. Kama loka means the desire realm. So we are in this desire realm. And this form realm. And then the next one is the Rupa Loka, which is the desireless realm, but form realm. And this is the Sambhogaya. This is like this is the meditative, this is the intellectual. The stuff that happens in the brain. And then there is the desireless, formless, which is the arupa loka, or not desireless, not form level. So this would be the realm that is the approaching the Buddha realm and so on. But now this is the true meditational deities. These are the 8 great bodhisattvas and the Buddhas, the 8 great Buddha, the 5 Buddha families and so on. So again, this is very subtle and requires some study and some investigating, some contemplation and experience with this. So in their ignorance, they wander in samsara, or wandering in the ocean of suffering. So not to be liberated, not to be able to be there, you're in this suffering, and one of the sufferings is, I don't understand. I'm trying to understand this, and I don't understand. And the thing that's holding you back is we're remaining conceptual. And until we can loosen that, until we can let go of the conceptual, and have that experience of the non-conceptual, then all this stuff starts falling into place. Remember, the analogy I've always used is that this is a 2,000-piece jigsaw puzzle without a picture, and we have to put it together. And so the first thing we do is we put all the pieces out, and we find all the straight edge pieces and the corner pieces. So we create a frame. That's pretty easy. And that's like defining this phenomenal nature. Then we start looking at all the interior pieces, and we start examining them and studying them and trying trial and error to get them to fit together. And slowly, we begin to see the subtleties of how they fit together and so on. So this is a lot, this is like that. So then this last sentence here, it says, realize the meaning of the ineffable ground. So ineffable means inexpressible. This ground that is this phenomenon, that is beyond the phenomenal nature, this absolute nature that we are part of, but we don't recognize it. We don't really recognize the phenomenal nature until it's pointed out to us. But then we begin to, through logic, we begin to say, oh yeah, that makes sense. Now I can see, now I understand how all this is all temporary and all this is impermanent and all the different things that we've been learning about. But then beyond that, then we begin, when we have the meditative experience, then we have the experience of the absolute, the Sambhogaka, the Samantabhadra experience, recognizing ourselves as Samantabhadra. So now it says, I, Samantabhadra, know the ground's reality. So Samantabhadra knows this because Samantabhadra is all knowing, is the awakened one, which is without cause or condition. So it's not conditioned. There are no causes. It just is. It originates by itself within this very ground. So it's completely spontaneously present. And again, this is an experience. When we have that experience, and maybe you've had it, maybe you've had some kind of an insight, maybe you've had some kind of an epiphany of that. They say that, at a moment of great, powerful love, not the least of which is orgasm. That there's that moment of complete bliss, of orgasm. And so where there is this moment of that kind of release, of realization of this oneness, of this singularity, however you want to call it. Another is like falling asleep. Another is dying. When you're letting go.
They're saying that sneezing is one moment too.
I've heard that. I don't know. I can't say I've had that experience. I've sneezed many times, but I don't know if I've had an epiphany while sneezing.
They're saying that when you sneeze, it's so short that you don't even realize it. That it's there.
I could agree to that, but on the other hand, I can agree with the other items. So which is without cause or condition, it originates by itself within this very ground. So what we are learning to do is to recognize that we are Samantabhadra. It is unspoiled by perspective, supposition, or denial. So any, fabricated ideas that we can bring to bear on this, it's beyond that. And it's by the perspective of any outer perspective or any inner perspective. In other words, any dualistic perspective. So remember, we're three-dimensional beings living in a dualistic existence. And if we can blast out of that, then there are other dimensions and so on that we're opening ourselves up to. So that is another metaphor for trying to explain what we're experiencing. And we experience that here. It's not here. It's not an intellectual experience. It's an experience here that we begin, that we pull back on, when we have that kind of an experience with our heart, then we try and rationalize it with the brain. Then we try and intellectualize it. What was that? And then we invent all these ideas about what this was. But meanwhile, it's this heartfelt experience. So it goes on, it says, and unobscured by the darkness of unmindful delusion, unobscured by the darkness of unmindful delusion. In other words, by our mental preconceptions, all the things that we think it might be. You know, in this phenomenal world, everything is possible. You know, and we start thinking about what all those possibilities are. But there is that which is beyond all those possibilities, where everything, it just is. You know, the book Be Here Now. I don't know, maybe some of the older guys here remember that book by Baba Ram Das. And what a mind blower that was. Be here now. You know, just be here now. You know. That which is self-manifest is thus without fault. So this is perfect in the regard that it is the essence quality. For us, it's perfect. I mean, everything that we know in the phenomenal world is all contaminated. It's all contaminated with dualistic nature. But in this absolute nature, it's all completely pure. There's essence. There's no fault. And when we look at the phenomenal nature, we see the phenomenal nature as being pure, but we also see that what has made it dualistic was us, human beings. Animals don't make it dualistic. Insects don't make it dualistic. Human beings make it dualistic. So, next page, it says, when abiding in genuine intrinsic awareness, when abiding in genuine intrinsic awareness, what this is, what this means is, have you heard the name Rigpa? R-I-G-P-A? This is Rigpa. This is clear light. Have you heard the name clear light? Have you heard the name pristine cognition? These are three ways of explaining genuine intrinsic awareness. Having the awakened mind, the awakened heart, however you the big mind, Rigpa. This is the inseparability between you and all that is of now. Be here now. When abiding in this Rigpa, this pristine cognition, this clear light, this genuine intrinsic awareness, there is no fear even at the triple world's demise. So the triple world is back to the three realms. You know, when we talked about the Kamaloka, the Rupa Loka, and the Arupa Loka, when all that goes away, you know, we say, fine, I didn't need it. I don't need it anymore. You know, if that goes, fine. And that's what we're trying to do. Because when we leave our body, when we liberate ourselves, when we eject our consciousness, now we become just pure spirit. And there's no physicality involved. There's no intellectualism involved. The triple world has gone away. So there's no fear, unless we take the fear with us. But in the purest sense of it, there's no fear. If we have become inseparable with that clarity, then there's no fear. There's no need to be fearful.
The triple realm is the triple world is the same as the three realms.
Yes. That's another way of saying it, you know. Yes. So, nor is there attachment to the five sensory delights. So, not only are we not having the subterranean ground, the apparent ground, and the above ground, not only is that going away, but also there is no attachment to the five sensory delights. So, what are the five sensory delights? What we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we taste, and what we touch. Those are the five. So they're all gone because those are all agents of the brain, of the intelligence, of the brain. Brain stops working, those things are gone. So in self-originating awareness, free of concepts. So all this is gone. In self-originating, the essence, awareness, free of concepts. So we're back to this, free of concepts. This is the Samantabhadra. This is the primordial Buddha. This is from whence we in the bardo of reality, we are there in this total freedom. And are we able to maintain that, sustain that? An analogy that I've got here is the Judeo-Christian analogy. And in the Judeo-Christian analogy, that we all die, and when we die, we meet God. And when we meet God, it's like this bright light. And are we able to stand the bright light? Or are we cowering because we don't have enough? We are not God ourselves. We do not see ourselves as God. We approach God as a sinner. We approach God as being contaminated, as being unequal to God. And therefore we cower away from God. We're not free enough to be able to stand and let that light be our light, that we fuse with that light, that we melt with that light, that we become the light of God. So that's an analogy for the freedom. That when we're in the bardo of reality, that there is this awareness, this rigpa, this clear light, that now we are just, that we merge with completely like a mother, like a child running into its mother's lap, or pouring water into water. Garchin always uses that analogy, like water being poured into water. So to deal with this, to work with this, we have to familiarize ourselves with the mind of the Buddha, with the mind of Samantabhadra. So this prayer to Samantabhadra is a means for us to be able to help focus on what our intention is, what our motivation is, and how we do that. Any questions or comments? You can see we're not going to get through this all tonight. But is this useful? Okay.
Yes, definitely. Kuntuzangpo is a great resource.
Okay. Okay, so now coming down to, we're still on page 3 in the middle of the page, it says, there is neither solid form nor the 5 poisons. So solid form, we're familiar with all that. So this is when all the energy has slowed down and we have the coalescence of all this energy coming together, and it manifests as form. You know, so now we've blown that away. So there's neither solid form because we were free of this this coalescence. We've blown it away. Nor the 5 poisons. And the 5 poisons are the essence of the emotions. So the 5 poisons are the ignorance, the hatred, the desire, the jealousy or envy, and the greed and pridefulness. These are the 5 poisons. So there's no emotions, there's no form. So there's no longer any intellect, there's no longer any physicality. The unobstructed clarity of awareness, now we're back to the Rigpa. We're back to the pristine cognition, to the clear light. The unobstructed clarity of awareness is one in essence, and 5-fold wisdom is one in essence. So that's what I was talking about, is self-originating. Remember we were using that? So this is going back to the essence, it's back to that purity. And the 5-fold wisdoms. And the 5-fold wisdoms are the lens, if you will, or the prism, or the Sambhogaya manifestation of that essence in these 5 wisdoms. And the 5 wisdoms are the 5 Buddha families. The all-pervading wisdom, the wisdom of mirror-like wisdom, the wisdom of equanimity, the wisdom of discriminating awareness, and the wisdom of the all-accomplishing wisdom. So we've talked about these things in Buddhism 101. So I'm giving you papers on this, you've had books on this, you know, and so it's up if you want to study this, you know, the idea is these are the rungs on the ladder that we use to go along the path, to use this path as a vertical ladder, or it's that we're paving our way to get to enlightenment. You know, all this knowledge, all this stuff that we put together, all this intellectualization that helps us to be able to focus on our mindfulness. If you can do it without it, you know, great. I couldn't do it without it, you know. So in one essence and 5-fold wisdom, so the wisdom of the 5 Buddha families, and through the ripening of the 5 wisdoms, through the maturization of these 5 wisdoms. So what does that mean? It means that it is a process. It means that first we get introduced to these things, and then we go through our doubts. Oh, it can't be. This, that. Then we go through logical investigation of it. We take it apart. We put it back together again. We leave out, we remove the contaminations. We remove the confusions that are preventing us from understanding its pure nature, our preconceived ideas. So we purify it. We do this over and over and over again. It's a process. So as we do this, we're getting closer and closer and closer to the purest essence of what these 5 wisdoms are bringing to us, or what they are revealing to us, or what we are realizing are within us. We're experiencing them as pure, 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 pure. So the word maturation helps us to see that this is a process of where we start out as infants, and we go through a process to where we get to be mature, where this wisdom now makes perfect sense in its simplicity and in its purity, without all the contaminations, after we've tested everything and we put it all back together. So through the ripening of the of the 5 wisdoms, the 5 original families, the 5 original Buddha families arise. So the 5 Buddha families, if you remember, is the Buddha family, then is the Vajra family, the Ratna family, the Padma family, and the Karma family. So those are associated with the 5 wisdoms and the 5 Buddhas. And then we broke that all down. You got a spreadsheet that shows all their names and so on, and what they represent, and the antidotes to the poisons, all these 5 things line up in a spreadsheet. And you see, here are the poisons, here are the antidotes, here are the Buddhas that provide the antidotes, here are the results, here are the wisdoms that are the results, and so on. Here are the 5 colors that go along with those to help us, that when we get beyond the names, now we got our colors. When we go into meditation, do we need names? Is it important to know names? Do we have to go to that level of detail to know names? Well, do we need to know the Tibetan names or the Sanskrit names? Or maybe we need to know the English names. Or maybe we need to know the Hindi names. What names do we need to know? Or can we know the lights? Can we know the sound that they make as they're vibrating? The lights are produced by vibrations. The sounds are produced by vibrations. The seed syllables are the vibrations of those particular Buddhas. The lights are the radiation, or the radiance of those Buddhas. Can we know those lights? So in the center is a blue light. In the east is a white light. In the south is a yellow light. In the west is a red light. In the north is a green light. And they are associated with those different Buddhas. So whatever level you're looking at it, now you have another way of being able to ascertain that. So when you're in meditation, are you going to the blue light? Are you going to the red light? Going to the green light? Going to the clear light? The clear light is the absolute Rigpa, the intrinsic awareness. So maybe if you've read any, of the instruction manuals for meditation, they talk a lot about the lights. So it's familiarizing ourselves with this, familiarizing ourselves with the mind of the Buddha, Samantabhadra. So the 5 original Buddha families arise, and through wisdom's further expansion, the 42 peaceful Buddhas emerge. So now it says, and through wisdom's further expansion. So now we're taking our knowledge base, this understanding of the spirit world, of this Sambhogaya, of all this iconography and stuff, and it just keeps on going out with more and more and more and more stuff and everything. Do we need to have all that stuff? Not necessarily. It can be helpful. For each of us, it's going to be a little different. Some people need to know all these little details. Here's the 42 peaceful Buddhas emerge. And then you turn the page, and then it says, with the upsurge in the 5-fold wisdom's power. And then the next line says, the 60 blood-drinking Herukas appear. So now we're up to 112 or 102 Buddhas. So this is called the Shitro. And when we study the Bardo teachings, when we study the Bardo Todal, the liberation of through hearing and so on, we study all that because these are the Bardo of reality beings that we experience through our studies and meditation here in the Bardo of living. So we're familiarizing ourselves with this in order to purify ourselves, because each of these different deities, each of these peaceful deities and the wrathful deities are there to help us to overcome our emotions, to overcome our attachments, to overcome the ignorance and so on. So it's getting more detailed, more elaborate. Do we need it? Not necessarily. Because if you know one Buddha, you know all the Buddhas. If you know one essence, it's all the same essence. If you know the essence of Samantabhadra, it's all the same essence. But for us to be able to get to understand the essence of Samantabhadra, sometimes we have to approach it a little bit at a time, and we got to get this piece here from here, and this piece here from there, and this piece here from there. And then we start seeing how this fits together. We start seeing those puzzles coming together, those puzzle pieces. And we say, oh, if I can apply this, if I've used this to understand these particular deities, if I apply that to these other pieces here, maybe they'll go together faster. And you find that's exactly what happens. So here it says, with the upsurge of fivefold wisdom's power. So that means that having this wisdom, knowing how these things operate, now we can apply it to all these other detailed pieces, and you have the power to make this wisdom come greater, faster, and so on, and more stable. And by doing all this, it becomes more stable. So the peaceful deities, it says the 42 peaceful deities emerge. So the peaceful deities are working in the heart, and they're working on the emotions. The 60 blood-drinking Harukas appear. The blood-drinking Harukas, what this means is that they have unqualified enjoyment, and that by even drinking blood, it to them it's pure. To them it's nectar. It's part of the dualistic phenomena. We're the ones who say, oh, it's disgusting to drink blood.
Are this the wrathful deities?
These would be the wrathful deities. But they are wrathful in the sense that they're very fierce with their compassion to be able to overcome whatever emotions are being held by us. So they're fierce. So the wrathful term or blood-drinking term is certainly a shocking term. But what it means is fierce compassion. And they work on the cause of the emotions, the mental misconceptions, the mental confusions, the games that we play, all the myriad thoughts that come into our minds and so on, that we allow to manifest as the emotions that block up the heart. If we can purify the brain, then these just fall away. So then it says, thus the ground awareness has never known delusion. So we're back to the Rigpa. This ground awareness, has never known delusion. It's pure, it's unborn. Once it gets born into the phenomenal world, now it's subject to all the contaminations. The Buddha was born as a Buddha. But then he got contaminated. But he was born the Buddha. We're all born the Buddha. And then we get contaminated. And then at some point we wake up and say, you know what? I need to purify myself. I've got this pure nature within me that is all screwed up. And I've got to remove all those blockages, all those obscurations, all those confusions. And I need a system by which I can do that. And we start cleaning up, we start purifying, and so on like that. And we get back to that purity that we're born with. We're born pure, and that's one of the things about, some of the other traditions, and, the Christian, they say, you're born contaminated, you're born with this sin. Well, we don't look at it that way. We look at it that you're born with certain propensities, but we don't look at it as sin until you act on those things. You create your own sin. So this ground awareness has never known delusion. It's Rigpa. I am the primordial Buddha. It's the next line. It says, I am the primordial Buddha. Recognize that you are the Buddha. Recognize at the very least that you have the potential for this realization within yourself. I am the primordial Buddha, and therefore, through this, my prayer of aspiration. So this is just getting us to the purpose of this prayer. May beings of Samsara's three realms that we've talked about already, may beings of Samsara's three realms recognize self-originating awareness, that they recognize their own Rigpa, their own awareness, their own Buddha nature, so that vast wisdom may be perfected. So I think that's pretty clear.
Lance,
Yes.
And I don't know a great deal about this, but I know that I've experienced it all my life. There are persons who are born with pathological conditions that are related to, for want of a more informed expression, their body chemistry that incline them to certain types of behavior. They're not a result of anything that they've experienced socially. They can have a body chemistry that can make them inclined to violence. I wish I knew enough about it to talk about it in an informed way.
Well, let me head you off to the pass here and say that there's genetic heredity,
Mm-hmm.
there's karmic heredity, and who's to say that karma does not interact with genetics? It's just another way of looking at it. Genetics, we would say, is of the matter, physical stuff, but then karma is of the spiritual, but the operation of this is beyond ordinary human comprehension again, to be able to understand and to be able to fathom all of this. But yet, it can be meditated upon, and clarity can come through the transcendence of our ordinary mind. So yes, some people have proclivities to do all kinds of things. And you pointed out the worst things. But on the other hand, there are beings that have propensities to do nothing but great things. Their whole lives have been blessings, their whole entire lives. There have been other beings whose lives have been nothing but misery, who've been in hell their whole entire life, or they've been in insatiable, hungry ghosts their entire life. And what is it that makes all that happen? Well, we may not know the answer to that, but we know what tools we have to work with it with those that can be worked with. Not everybody can be worked with in a single lifetime. And it's not our job, so to speak, to be able to heal everybody. You can't do that. And ultimately, individuals have to want to do it themselves, and they have to have the tools to be able to do it themselves. So we talked about this when we talked about the wheel of existence. We talked about the 6 realms of human existence, and we're going to go into that. That's what the next few pages are all about. So we need to look into that. So there are some answers we don't have, but we also have an understanding of how we can work with those things that we don't know the causes to, so that the karma is transformed. So I hope that answers your question. It's a valid question, and one that you're going to come back to over and over and over again. But that's part of the process. It's part of the system to be able to analyze that and understand and experience that.
I guess the root of my question, and there may not be an answer to this that's available to us here, is how does someone that is so afflicted work with it themselves? Are they trapped in their affliction? Are they just lost? Is there?
Well, every situation is a little different. But if you remember that when we talked about the 6 realms, the wheel of existence, that there was a Buddha in each one of those 6 realms. So there are teachings and teachers for all those beings. So it's a matter for them to be able to align themselves with that vibration, to be able to intersect and be able to accept those teachers. So we've all gone through that to some degree or another in this lifetime. What is it that drew you to want to learn about these things and so on? So, like I said, I hope that, points you in a bit of a direction that it's going to be, part of your evaluation of how this system operates and seeing that. We don't have the answers for everybody, but, everybody has Buddha nature. So it's a matter of them being able to be in a position, they may have to live and die with it. That may be their hell. That may be their affliction, their hungry ghost, their insatiability. That may be their animal realm existence. We see them as a human being, but meanwhile, they look at life like an animal. There are people among us who are very wealthy, very powerful beings, who we can't make any sense out of. It's beyond our understanding how these people can be as ignorant or as confused as they are. Why aren't they rational human beings? Okay. That's a good question. I keep on looking. Yes, sir.
What we come down here for is to overcome our karma.
Yeah.
And that's the one main reason that we're in, that we take in life, to overcome the karma. I think that we are here until we get so pissed off at the way things are that we want to make a change. And when we discover that the change that has to be made is only with us, not with anybody else or anything else, we have to make the change inside us. When we realize this, we start working. And that's when all of this Buddhism and Christianity and Hudawats comes into play. But until you get down to the point that you're so aggravated that you decide that you got to make the change, and you discover that you have to make the change in yourself.
No, you're right. And whether you say that we have to overcome our karma, we have to neutralize our karma, or we have to let our karma go, there's many different ways of looking at it and so on. But I think your point is well taken, that we have this karma and we have to allow it to ripen. If we keep suppressing our karma, then it's only going to come up some other time. So we need to allow it to come and be joyful that it comes. Then we got something we can work with. But if we keep suppressing it, it's just it's just lying dormant until the conditions are right for it, and then it's going to come. So we should investigate and we should work at it and so on. And that's part of the. If you remember, we talk about calm abiding meditation, shamatha meditation. First, we have to learn how to calm ourselves, and then things come up. The vipassana, the insight meditation. And we need to allow those insights to come up, because those become the tools or the seeds, those become the activities of the karma that has been repressed. So we need to allow that to manifest. I've said this before, maybe not recently, but here, what are the 4 good qualities of suffering? Why, we've got this life and everything. We're in this phenomenal world. Well, is it all bad? Are there any good qualities to this suffering? So the good qualities of being suffering are that, number one, or that we become disheartened with the suffering. This is what you just said. We become pissed off enough to say, I've had enough. How do I get off of this merry-go-round? And then what we do is we dispel arrogance. And then we allow compassion to arise for those who are our brothers and sisters in cyclic existence, those who don't realize the suffering that they're in. And that evil is shunned, that we make, unwholesomeness, and we see unwholesome, and we have to marginalize it. We may not be able to neutralize it in its entirety, but we can neutralize it for ourselves. And then joy is found in virtue. That we find that I can't change other beings, I can only change myself, and for that I have great joy. And then if I can help other beings through that joy without losing my joy, well, then that's what I will do. So all this is engaging in the conduct of the Bodhisattva, the holy enlightened being. And this wisdom comes from Shantideva, from the way of the Bodhisattva. What Kuntuzangpo has been teaching on these past couple months or so. So, there's just a few more lines that I can finish here. So continuously, I'm on page 4 at the bottom. It says, continuously my emanations appear. I'm speaking as Samantabhadra. Continuously my emanations appear in their many billions beyond imagining, manifest in varied ways according to need. So this is what I was talking about, you know. We may not recognize all these things, but we're not Samantabhadra, we're not the Buddha. So we don't know what everybody needs, but there's all these different things that are happening. And through this, my compassion aspiration, may all the beings of Samsara's 3 realms escape their plight among the 6 classes. So this is our way of dealing with it. You know, we may not have the ability to help them, but we are part of something that does help them, and may they accept the help. May they be in a position to be able to accept that. And whatever we can do to facilitate it, we'll do whatever we can, but we have to stay within our bodhicitta. We have to stay within our wisdom. We have to stay within our compassion. We have to stay within our joy. We have to stay within our equanimity. If we lose any of those in the process, now we're creating more suffering for ourselves, and we didn't help anybody. Does that make some sense? Yeah. So the 6 classes escape the plight of the 6 classes. So the 6 classes are the God realm, the jealous God realm, the human realm, the animal realm, the hungry ghost realm, and the hell realm. So those are the 6 realms, the 6 classes of beings. Okay, so I think that's it for tonight, because you know, if you got there's not enough time to start going into this other stuff, and if you want to continue this, I'm more than happy to continue this, you know, as we move forward. If you want to say, okay, this is enough, and you'll study it later on, that's okay too. Whatever you want to do. Okay, I got mudras from Gary, and got fist pumps. I got thumbs up. Okay, good.
It's all very interesting.
Good. Okay. And if you want to, if you haven't been taking notes and you want to take notes, you know, you can listen to it again, because we recorded this and will be on YouTube.
Is this right? I think from what I've heard previously is that the Kuntuzangpo sprayer is beneficial if it's being done during full moon, or is that right? Is there?
It is said that when, yes, in the last, in the end of the book here, the end of the text, it says, if you go to page 14,
Okay.
everybody turn to page 14 if you can. So at the bottom, the middle of the page, the bottom middle of the page, it says, when Rahu seizes the sun or moon. So Rahu means the son of the Buddha. Siddhartha Gautama's son name was Rahula. So Rahula, La is the affectionate term that is applied to the name Rahu. So it's just generally referring to sons of the Buddha or daughters of the Buddha, you know. So when Rahu seizes the sun or moon, which means a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse. So it's a direct reference to that. Whenever the earth rumbles or quakes, so an earthquake or some kind of a catastrophe is happening, at the solstices or close of the year or close of the year, visualize yourself as Samantabhadra and chant this aloud so that all may hear. Then all the beings of the three realms will, through the yogi's prayer of aspiration, gradually be free from their suffering and ultimately awaken as a Buddha. So a yogi. So not just a practitioner. First we start off as a beginner, a doubter. Then we become a practitioner. We engage. We take refuge. We start doing practices. We start taking teachings and so on. We start contemplating and meditating. And then we become a yogi or a yogini, where we become in union, where we become inseparable from the body, speech, and mind of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. The three roots, we become inseparable. We become a yogi. Then through the yogi's prayer of aspiration that I want to be the Buddha, I want to be enlightened, I want to be Samantabhadra, then gradually be free from their suffering and ultimately awaken as a Buddha. So, yes, so during the time of calamity is a time to test your resolve, to test your faith. When we get sick is a great time to practice. When we get confused is a great time to practice. When we get emotional is a great time to practice. When difficulty is surrounding us is a great time to practice, because those hardships really test our mindfulness. If we only practice when it feels good, when the sun is shining and everything's beautiful, how do we know that we've been successful? How do we know what attainments we've made? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It
Yes,
does.
we have to
Every
give,
day. It's a good time to practice.
Yeah,
we have to give thanks for all of the lessons we learned from the hard times.
that's right. They're the best teachers.
Yes, definitely.
They're the best teachers. We learn by our failures much quicker than we learn by, the things that we take for granted when things just come easy to us.
Yes.
And I think William was suggesting that in the number of times we fall to earth. I think we fall in order to increase our spiritual resilience, so that the more we fall, the more we learn from adversity, and next time around we got a little more callous and a little more wisdom, and bounce back a little better.
Right. It's a good analogy or a metaphor, for being reborn again. But then remember when I was saying that we face God, or we face that bright light, and then we say, oh, I'm not ready. So then we come back, we're reborn again. But what karma are we reborn with? Are we reborn with the courage to be reborn and saying, okay, I've got work to do. I accept that work for the benefit of others. It's not just a selfish work, it's a work for others. Okay, I've got work to do, and I'm going to do it and dedicate it for others. Make it happen for others.
Lance, when you're talking about the clear light, was that in the center of the mandala?
Is that in the center of the mandala? The
Yeah.
mandala, at that point, the mandala is gone. The mandala is gone. Were you here with us when we did the Prajnaparamita prayer the other day, the Heart Sutra? Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Buddhi, Soha. Everything is gone. Mandala.
But that's
Mandala
the
is a conception.
it's a tool to get to that realization, and when that happens, that just doesn't make any sense to be. It's a concept, like you said.
Yeah, we see it for what it is. It's a tool, but there's a
Mhm.
point when you don't need the tool anymore. Remember the analogy of the boatman?
Yes.
You want to get from one shore of suffering across the river of confusion, and on the other side is enlightenment. Once you go on the boat and you get to the other side, you don't need the boat anymore.
Right.
It's one of those expedient means, huh?
So remember, we've been born many times. We've died many times. We've experienced this many times. We may not have experienced it at this level. Maybe we have. And maybe it's just putting the pieces back together again. We've all got, some time to live yet. And could enlightenment come? It's quite possible, in this lifetime. But it may be another lifetime, maybe another lifetime. Maybe we've had some setbacks and now we're born in this time and now we're trying to get back to where we were before the setbacks. It's all just interesting stuff to think about. Doesn't really matter. Okay. So anybody else got another question or anything? All right, William, you're the Umze tonight. You go to page 20 and page 21 and 22 for our dedication prayers.
Yeah. Dorkama prayer. By the virtues collected in the 3 times by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate root of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Kuntuzangpo
I'm not sure.
Rashini, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, Master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. Dedication prayer. Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind root and lineage lamas, divine assembly of idams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, yoginis, and dakinis dwelling in the 10 directions. Please hear my prayer. May the virtues collected in the 3 times by myself and all sentient beings in samsara and nirvana and the innate root of virtue not result in the 8 worldly concerns, the 4 causes of samsara, or rebirth as the Sharaka, or Pratika Buddha, may all mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who harm, misleading Marus, and the hordes of demons, experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachment to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that, may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. May the torment of suffering not arise even at the time of my death. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an ultimate untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such and the pervading clarity of Dharmata. May I, in any case, gain the supreme attainment of Madhata at the time of death or in the bardo.
Excellent. Thank you. Om, ah, Om. Om, ah, Om. Om, ah, Om. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones. Very good. Thank you all very much. I'm glad you are enjoying this. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Lance.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the wonderful teachings.
Oh, you're wonderful. Thank you very much for being here. You're an inspiration.
I'm glad we can be here.
Amen to that.
Good to see you, William.
Thanks.
All right, y'all. So thank you. I will, tomorrow night we'll do Buddhism 102. And I think we're continuing our discussion on chapter 18, the 5 paths. So that's a good talk. And we'll do Buddhism 101 on Monday. So thank you all very much. And then Kempo is teaching on Saturday and Sunday, and Drupan is teaching on Sunday.
Mhm.
We're so fortunate.
Amen to that.